Om Satyena Labhyastapassa Hyesa Atma Samyagyanena Brahmacharyena Nityam Antaha Sharirehi Jyotirmayo Hi Shubhraha Yam Pashanti Yatayaha Kshina Doshaha. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. The Atman, the indivisible self within, is realized by knowledge, by moderation, by austerity, and by veracity. All of these constantly cultivated. When mental impurities dissolve due to this practice, then the seer beholds it existing everywhere, even here in this very mind and body. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Shravanayapi Bhuhir Yo Ya Labnaha. Om Nicho Nichanam Chetanas Chetananam Eko Bahunam Yo Vidadati Kaman Tamatmastam Yenu Pashanti Diraha Tesham Shanti Shashvati Netaresham. Om Shantihi Shantihi Shantihi. That one, the eternal among non-eternal things, the intelligence of the most intelligent ones, who, though ever one, nevertheless fulfills the desires of the many. The wise ones realize that one as dwelling in their very self. To them belong peace, and to none else. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Shravanayapi Bhubhiryo Na Labhyaha Shrinvatopi Bhavo Yam Na Vidyahu Ascharyo Gyata Kushalo Shalabda Ascharyo Vakta Kushalo Nushishtaha. Many there are who have never heard of the great self within. Many others, though they hear of it, fail to comprehend it. Fortunate is that one who hears of it. Blessed is the one who speaks of it. But extremely fortunate is that one whom, having heard of it from the lips of an illumined preceptor, is able to realize it here and now, in this very life, in this very moment. Om peace, peace, peace. Om Sahana, Om Sahana Bhavatu, Sahanau Bhunaktu, Sahaviryam Karavavai, Tejasvi Navaditamastu Ma Vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May Brahman, the reality, protect us. May Brahman sustain us. May Brahman illumine our thinking process. May we not find fault with each other, with the world, or with the teachings. And may what we study be a source of inspiration to us eternally. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us. May peace be unto all. Om Hari Om. So, Svagatam, welcome everyone to the SRV Ashram in Hawaii. We return after some 4 or 5 week absence from Hawaii. And in that absence, I hope many of you on the live streaming audience and my students here in Hawaii also saw the classes on both Saturday and Sunday in San Francisco on one weekend and in Portland on 2 weekends. And that fourth weekend we were in a retreat in Seattle and plunged very deeply in the timeless teachings of the Vedanta, Yoga, and Sankhya. And now that we have returned to Hawaii, we will have a series of 5 or 6 classes while I'm present here in Hawaii before the spring Dharma visit. And those classes, the first 2 of them, will continue in our series that we were enjoying before I departed for the mainland. We call the U.S. the mainland here in the islands. We were coursing along in the vein of a subject called the devotion of non-separation. The Sanskrit for that is Ananya Bhakti. There are great words like Ananta, infinity, Ananda, unalloyed bliss with no opposite. And there's also other words of that sound. Ananya is one of those, the non-separation. Sort of like what Gaudapada speaks about in his Karika in the non-touch yoga, which we will show you and get into soon. The devotion of non-separation brings together 2 great paths, as we see on the chart on the other side of me, on your left. That is the one we will take first for our teachings. We'll look into the reason why the seers who are akamai, or in the know, it's a Hawaiian word this time instead of a Sanskrit word, who are in the know about the union, the natural union of bhakti, devotion, and jnanam, wisdom. Jnanam is not just secular knowledge or intellectual knowledge or knowledge of a pundit or a scholar, but it's specialized knowledge that focuses on spiritual life alone. And it allows one, once it's studied through scripture, through direct transmission, as we are having here in this room, and as I got from my teachers, it allows one to concentrate samadhana on reality alone, on divine reality alone, which is a very difficult thing to do if you haven't ever tried it. If you have tried it, then you know that is something that is advised by the seers, but it's a very subtle practice. That's the third yoga of what we were talking about here, jnana and bhakti, and then dhyan yoga or raja yoga or patanjala or ashtanga. Any one of those 4 words will suffice to begin to describe the yoga of meditation. Te dhyan yoga nugata pasyan devatma shaktim svagunayar nagudim. That is, the Svetasvatara Upanishad says that the Devatma Shaktim, this divine power in everything, whom we call Divine Mother, is gained by rapt meditation, dhyan yoga. And that meditation, as we will see in charts that we will use today, can take several different forms, as we saw last week in our class in Portland, Oregon, when we looked at the 4 ways of perceiving Brahman. If you were there for that class, either in form or in the formlessness on the live streaming, this subject of Ananya Bhakti was interrupted when we left Hawaii 5 weeks ago, but it was coursing along and I hadn't finished the charts I'd selected for the teaching of it, so I decided to continue it on in this week's class and next week's class. Here you see one of our own beautiful Hawaiian birds, one of those koa-e-ula, they're called. They skim the cliffs of Nepali coast on Kauai, for instance, is where I first saw them. They very rarely ever come to light anywhere except in nests in their cliffs. So as I've studied them, I saw sort of avadut-like. I noticed that they were a good example for the free soul who never comes to earth, or who barely just skims earth, just associates with earth and the human body, but stays very high and elevated in higher mind and higher consciousness. It builds, the koa eula bird builds its nest in the cliffs very high, so it saves it from all danger. And that is there on the ground of existence. You might call it the 6 passions and the 8 fetters and all the various interacting karmas of living beings. So it stays far away from those and builds its nest in the cliffs and then soars at very high elevation on the winds effortlessly. So it's a very good metaphor for that devotee who has blended jnana and bhakti, and once having successfully blended those 2 paths, now meditates on them. That is, as we say, Drishyam pravitam pravila payan san matram anandaganam vibhavayam samahita san bahir antaram va kalam nayetaha sati karma bande. That is antaram va, kalam, that is the outer and the inner, the bahir and the antaram, have to be blended into one thing, because they are one thing. Maya has just made them appear as 2. So one of the important facets of a spiritual aspirant's life is to take the many and blend them back into a state of homogeneity, oneness, because that's where they sprang from. And then when they work their way out, like down into the gross vibrations of the 5 elements and the objects of the senses, and the senses themselves, which are fixed on the objects. I mean, unlike the koa eula bird, the vulture's eyes is always fixed on the carrion pit, always fixed on the dead carcass on ground. So he soars very high, but his eyes aren't fixed upwards. That is, from the heart chakra up, they're always fixed on the lower centers. The seats of the eyes are in the head, Sri Ramakrishna said, not down lower. So being in the head, that's a symbol for higher consciousness. They should see, and those 2 should become one. And then when the eye is single, as Christ said, Jesus put it beautifully, then thou shalt know the truth. So whether you talk about it in terms of the 5 elements, the 5 senses, their meeting points, or whether you talk about it in terms of the distracted or scattered minds, or whether you talk about it in terms of philosophy, the 4 yogas, this strong tendency, this wise leaning towards unification is the mead, the food, the very nutrition of the saints and seers. And those ones who hail from India, not satisfied just to have that oneness for themselves, come forward and spread it to us through very different philosophies or ways of seeing. Darshanas are called, clear ways of seeing. So the devotion of non-separation, more than being just a very pretty title, has a very deep philosophical truth to communicate to us. Non-separation sounds like Advaita or non-duality, like Zen Buddhism or Advaita Vedanta or Shakta Advaita Vata. I brought a chart on Shakta Advaita, that is the oneness of all things with the Mother. And then the other side of the coin is devotion, which seems like it can't really thrive without two-ness. There has to be a devotee and the act of devotion and the thing to be devoted to. So even threeness is there, or manyness in the path of devotion. That's bhakti. Sometimes they call it the slow boat to China, the slow scenic view, where nobody's in a hurry to get anywhere. They're just enjoying God in form. So it's a very rich, vast tradition. And as the title suggests, this isn't something that we become to X other things out of the equation. We don't become non-dualists, therefore, to X out of the equation the other levels of philosophy or the other darshanas or the other yogas, especially as devotees of Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, that idea of universality and the oneness of existence and the universality of all paths, acceptance of all paths is very important to us. So we can cast our gaze, our inner gaze, anywhere we want in this wide periphery and these rich lands of devotion and philosophy, and see the innate oneness in all things. And then that helps us when we go out into our life too. We can even practice the yoga of that oneness, Ananya Bhakti, in terms of our relationships with people and places and things and even objects. We develop a sort of custodianship, a kind of devotion to objects. We deify them rather than become averse to them, because we know aversion is one of the 5 main obstacles to yoga. Yoga actually means union. So Ananya Bhakti is well named, devotion of non-separation. Union yoga is already inferred in the equation, in other words. And then if you're having a problem with that, then devotion just rather gives you a simple, easy way of approaching it, of getting back to square one, or finding all inside of yourself again. So, far from being antagonistic of one another, these two paths, bhakti and jnanam, are the same at the apex of things. You see. Maybe down at the foundation they take different routes and use different methods and practices, but my contention is even there they seem to be very much the same, which is why I put together this chart here that I present to you to start off this series of 2 classes to finish up the subject of the devotion of non-separation. You see here, I've made one wing of the bird into jnanam, wisdom, and the other wing of the bird into bhakti, devotion. In another, and might as well just add in the meditation here, because Sri Sharda Devi, the Holy Mother, has said that meditation is the rudder to your boat. So just like the tail feathers is to the bird, guiding him through the ethers, through the subtle inner ethers, we need this rudder of our boat called Raja Yoga, or the yoga of 8 limbs, leading to meditation, and finally to samadhi. Samadhi being the 8th and highest limb. We have to learn to meditate. In order to do that, we have to learn to concentrate. And in order to do that, we have to learn how to detach our mind from sense objects. And that's only possible when we get control of our senses and our mind. And that's really made more possible by getting control of our prana, our life force. So on down the scheme of things, if you want to take the Ashtanga Yoga and start at the top limb and come down to the roots, backwards is a good exercise to do, because we know we should evolve, but we should also involve. Evolution is taking us out all the time until we become acclimatized to being out. We start thinking of ourselves as being external or physical beings only. And we forgot that we have this involution process to accomplish every day. And the best way to do that is meditation, is to draw everything back inside oneself. It's actually what one's doing when one goes to sleep tonight and starts dreaming. That's the first step of drawing everything back inside of yourself. You don't know it, but what you're really doing is playing with everything that had solidified itself outside by the power of your mind, and now you've taken it into subtle objects and you're playing with a subtle form of it. And then the next step, you're drawing it all back into the deep sleep state where everything goes formless. So if in every 24-hour period we do this outward march, and then we turn around and do the inward march again, then our waking state should also be based on the fact that if we find ourselves too externalized in any given day of our life, or any given hour of our day, or any given several minute period of our hour, then we should be able to immediately withdraw ourselves back to our peaceful station. You need peace first and foremost, Holy Mother said. Never lose that. That's your foundation. That's your default zone. So it's easier said than done, as we know, because of all the distractions and vagaries and vicissitudes, they say, in life and mind. Life being outward, mind being inward. But as Christ said, if you develop an inward life, an inner life, then you can blaze that pathway from life back to mind. To me, that is the meaning of the kingdoms of heaven within. They're not, of course, planetary realms outward, because that would just be going further out in space. So the kingdoms of heaven within is a very direct statement Jesus made. And if you look inside to the source of all of creation, you're going to find that it's the great mind that does that. The one vibratory power. All vibrations are in the mind. So Father of Yoga says that at the very get-go, the second sutra, Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Nirodha means to destroy or dissolve. So when you destroy the waves of the mind, you get into yoga. Why? Because the waves of the mind are creating the universe of name and form and time and space. And you can put that together with your quantum physics and see how everything's vibrating. So if you follow the trail of that teaching back inside of yourself, then you begin to take vibrations and become a master at vibration. And you begin to nirodha, you begin to just quell them, so just like you would stamp out a flame. And then you find out, after you've stopped all the vibrations of the mind, that you're the one doing the quelling, the stopping, and you're the one also that's left over. You're the residue. You're the essence left over after the dissolution process is complete. It gives you the idea that creation, preservation, and destruction, or projection, sustenance, withdrawal, are all in you, like a tempest in a teapot, they say. But you're the one that's holding the teapot. So when we look at ways of accomplishing the dissolution of the mind stream, the stream of consciousness that's always going out, we want to turn it back in on its source, like turning a light on oneself. Ram Prasad sings in some of his songs, turn instead to the original. It means turn inside and see the Atman, see the archetypical soul, the supreme being within, and take a good look at that. So ways of making that kind of turn are called yogas as practice. Yoga is the great practice. Samkhya is our science. This is our cosmology, the 24 cosmic principles, so that we know what everything's made of, inner and outer. And then yoga is our practice, and then Vedanta is the truth. So we put together our science with our practice and our truth, and we have a composite picture of ourself. That is the great self, which I just chanted about. Nobody is, few have known the great self, others, though they heard about it, they fail to comprehend it. So to get a greater realization of what the great self within is all about, then we follow these paths of yoga. So here on this chart, I've put together, across the board, intentionally, the facets of the path of jnana and the path of bhakti. You see, let's read the quote at the top first. Jnana and bhakti, wisdom and devotion, are like the two wings of a bird. A bird cannot fly without two wings. Therefore, O Divine Mother, grant us pure love, pure knowledge, and pure devotion. A quote that I remember of my teacher, Swami Sheshanandaji Maharaj, when he was living, and often used that phrase from the podium, the two wings of a bird. Also, we say the body is karma yoga, that is the body engaged in action. So you have the four yogas nicely placed there in the form of this Hawaiian bird. Now, if we look across the board, let's look at the comparative points. Jnana Yoga wants you to study the Shruti, the non-dual scriptures, Advaita. Revealed scriptures, not the ordinary scriptures. That is, scriptures that are dealing with the union of the apparently individualized self with the Supreme Self. And there again, you're practicing the devotion of non-separation, aren't you? Because right now you're thinking of God and mankind as two different things, or creature and creator as two different things. And so you're going to have to, with the unifier of consciousness, bring them together into one, then meditate on them, be content, happy, and be free. Once you've accomplished that, the natural result would be to enjoy freedom. Be a jivan mukta, a living liberated soul. And there's really no more work to be done after that. There's just observing and then serving. Observing and serving. Observing the laws cosmologically, philosophically, and spiritually, and then serving all beings. You could say serve all beings as God, but it'd be better to say serve God and all beings. And then you take the ego out of the quotient. You see that one reality in all beings. So it wants you to study the Shruti. Shruti means to hear, so it's the same word as Shravana, to hear. That's the first step towards a cogent and lucid spiritual life, is to hear the truth. That always brings the good news back to the soul. It might be sobering at first, but the sobering part is just letting go of unreal things, as Vedanta says. Letting go of vibrating particles that have congealed and turned themselves into an object which you've gotten obsessed with or fastened onto, and you can't let go of it now, so you become dependent. That's not the way yoga wants it to happen. As Patanjali, the father of yoga, said, the problem is that the seer has become identified with the seen, and we want to reverse that trend. So, therefore, detachment is advised early on. Vairagyam, it's called, detachment. So, study of the Shruti tells you about all these truths of how the apparently individualized soul is really one with the Supreme Soul. Jiva is Shiva, the Tantra would put it, or Jivatman is Paramatman, the Vedanta would say. Jivatman is the embodied soul, and Paramatman is the Supreme Soul. They're really one thing. So, root ignorance consists of thinking of them as two-ness. It's not two-ness that we want. Not two-ness is a better phrase than oneness, because oneness limits, but not two-ness gives you the back door, the freedom, to read into phrases like that, more depth. Now across the board you see that the Bhakti Yoga likes you to study the Smriti. So there's the Shruti and then there's the Smriti. Shruti is to be heard and Smriti is to be memorized. See, Smriti means memory. It means those scriptures on record from the memory of great souls that have talked about the relationships between gurus and disciples, between kings and their subjects, between sages and kings, between the priestcraft and the royalty and so forth, all infused with this spiritual backdrop. Karma Yoga, life in action. See? So, itihasa there means scriptural history. Those scriptures that are going to let us know about events that happen in scriptural history. And the secondary scriptures, the Puranas. So if you want to put it on one side, you have the Upanishads, and the other side you have the Puranas. It's sort of a simple way of putting it. Puranas and Tantras over here, and the Upanishads and Bhagavad Gita and the Brahma Sutras over here. So the point being here is that the scriptures may differ a little bit in tone and tenor in their approach according to temperament, but both paths want you to study the scriptures. So that's one way of unifying bhakti and jnanam. The next level is contemplation on the unity of Jivatman and Paramatman. Once you know that there is oneness. And once you know that there's a rus been created by an apparent two-ness, then you have to contemplate on the oneness of Jivatman and Paramatman. Make thine eye single. That's just the simplest way of putting it. So first you, in your worship on this side, you might see God as the altar, and you might have a relationship you're building with the images on the altar. But then pretty soon, because you have worshipped the altar so long, one day you see the altar inside yourself, and you start worshiping inside. You offer flowers inside. You offer hymns inside. You sing hymns in your memory, and you see the deity inside of you. You envision it. It's no different than waking and dreaming. Here you're serving all this, and it's serving you, and inside the same thing is happening in dream state. So it's the same with outer worship and inner worship. It's very much the same thing. There's a deep connection there. One is a deeper level of devotion, that's all, because we know that God can never be an object, is always the eternal subject. So we're getting closer to the eternal subject when we begin to take the gross object and turn it into the subtle object. And that's why we make our dreams real. They say, our waking state is dream number 1, and our dreaming state is dream number 2. Some wisdom given to us by Ramana Maharshi in recent times, but we know that they might as well be the same thing, because the same objects are there, and the same tendencies are there, the same desires. It's just a difference in vibration. So, if you're going to contemplate the unity of the Jivatman and the Paramatman, then you're going to have to render two into one, and that's on a philosophical level that Jnana Yoga wants you to do that through the comprehension of the intellect. Then the Bhakti Yoga wants you to contemplate the Lila, Nara Lila. Nara is man, Narayani is man, God in man. Narayan is God in man. Narayani is woman in God and woman, goddess and woman. And Nara means man, so the Lila is play. So you want to contemplate man's sport as God, and make that the subject of your inner life. Christ in the manger, Ram and Sita in the forest, so sent away to the forest. Radha and Krishna in their sport of love, and the gopis and the gopas. Buddha and his life, and, with arhats, 50 arhats that were there, at 500 arhats toward the end of his life. So those are Nara Lila, those are taking the greatest God-realized souls and meditating on their lives, because their lives were sportive. They were sporting in consciousness, they weren't identifying with the body. They were using the body to as a vehicle, a vahana, a vehicle to sport in consciousness, because this is all consciousness to them, because they have rendered the two into one already. Ananya Bhakti is their mental perspective. It's a mental asana that they assume. Now let's look back on the third point of Jnana Yoga, meditation on Brahman, the impersonal reality, or nirguna. Jnana wants you to do away with ignorance and therefore come to realization of the oneness of all existence. Maya matramidam dvaita advaita paramattaha. Basically, those who think in terms of two-ness, they know not. There's really only one reality here, and it's appearing as the many. So, Jnana would want you to meditate on Brahman, the impersonal reality, beyond name and form, beyond qualities, gunas, nirguna Brahman. It's beyond attributes or qualities. Across the board, Bhakti Yoga would want you to meditate on Ishvara. As you know, as members of Ramakrishna Loka, that is the SRV and Ramakrishna order and so forth, is that you're asked to do both. You're asked to meditate on the impersonal God, and you're asked also to meditate on Ishvara with the mantra. So those two practices you hold simultaneously. So there again, you're taking two and making them one, aren't you? Every time you sit. Your act of sitting down is like saying the personal God and the impersonal God are one thing. They're just in two different aspects. They appear in two different aspects for the highest good of the devotees. Those devotees who are not able or not inclined, either one, to worship God, the formless, will then have an easy access to divine reality through the form, through the divine form. Meditate on Ishvara, the personal God. That's saguna, with attributes. So these explanations are a way of helping the soul grapple with these apparent dichotomies that exist in the mind. Quite often for most people, they're in the backdrop of the mind. They're not real issues because they haven't gotten to a place yet where they're sincere about seeking truth. Know the truth and the truth shall set you free. They're still working with the world. They're still desiring things in the world. That's why we just chanted, the self is realized by knowledge, austerity, veracity, moderation, so forth. And when this practice is done, is cultivated, then mental impurities dissolve, and then the Atman comes forward. It's not like you have to go find God somewhere. You just have to remove the impurities of the mind, and God is standing, staring you in the face. It was just those impurities that acted as veils or false superimpositions that kept you from the vision of your own self. You are the darling of your own worship, as the Tantras would put it. But you're not seeing yourself as something worthy of worship yet, because the body isn't really worthy of worship. The senses aren't really worthy of worship. Even the mind, until it's purified, isn't really worthy of worship. Those are mechanisms that need purification. So when they're pure, then one sees God everywhere. And when they're impure, one sees nothing but the impure world. And struggles with it and suffers. So Nirguna and Saguna Brahman, one of those charts I was showing in Portland over the last 2 weekends in classes, those are ways the ancient rishis taught us how to make the two one, to practice Ananya Bhakti. God is with form, God is also beyond form, and God is beyond both form and formlessness as well, as Sri Ramakrishna put it, a direct quote from him. Now the next level, perform action as detached witness, knowing the world to be unreal. The Jnana Yoga wants you to see through the appearances of things and go for the ultimate reality. Not take any wooden nickels. The Vedantists don't take any wooden nickels. They want the truth and the truth alone. And they're going to test it from both sides, up and down, inside and out, with their discriminating intelligence. So that discriminating intelligence is based on the ability to detach. A person's discrimination is in question when they're attached to anything. They don't have that objectivity yet. So when they can detach from something and be perfectly equanimous, equal-minded, then they have the ability of observation without any mars or errors. See? So detachment is very important. Sometimes you put it in terms of abshobha. Abshobha means non-emotionalism. Sanskrit has words for all of these things that showed that they were thinking about it in very early terms. So if we can get it beyond the emotional level of things and beyond the level of passion and get dispassion or detachment, then the mind begins to clear, and you can get some reflection and you can get some powers of observation both. Those are both important to spiritual life according to the Jnana Yoga. So they want to make sure the mind is pure of those kinds of overlays before it engages in action, before it engages in thought, and before it engages in meditation. Meditation is not a good purifier. It's not supposed to be used for that. Jnana purifies the mind, bhakti purifies the heart, karma purifies the body and senses. Meditation is supposed to be left for my meeting with God. Once body, mind, senses, heart are all pure, then I meditate, you see. Otherwise, it's just an attempt at concentration, and concentration is not working because I haven't been able to withdraw my mind from objects yet successfully for any given length of time, even if it was for 1 hour this morning. See. So meditation is not a good purifier. It's not its purpose. It's for meeting God face to face. It's not for health. It's not for visions. Vision happened back when you were having your early separation from Maya. So when you first saw ignorance, that was the vision you wanted. Oh, I'm ignorant. I'm ignorant of the truth. That's the vision you wanted. All other visions were superfluous. Because when you got rid of the ignorance, then you started building character. And character is real spiritual life. At least in this world. In this world, character is what you're after. That's going to be an intricate part of your internal samskaras. Your mental makeup again, your mental asana is going to be based on character. And you get character from long suffering and practice and insight, realization that you've gleaned from doing sincere austerities and gaining knowledge and veracity, constantly cultivated, you see. So that's what I would say about the real purpose of meditation. Not for healing or for a healing power or health or visions or to slow the heart rate or for longevity and those things. No, it's for meeting with God. The Paramatman with the Jivatman. Jnana Yoga clears it up for you. On the next level, it also wants to let you know that when you perform action, you should perform it as a detached witness. The simplest way to say that is, I'm not the doer. It's not something that can be pretended, is the problem. People hear that and they say, oh, that sounds great. It's a way of diffusing the ego, see, by saying I'm not the doer. But you can't just give it mere lip service like a parrot. It does actions and gets itself into trouble, falls into the cat's jaws, you see. And just parroted the mantra. But the mantra I am not the doer has to be based on the knowledge that all actions, as Krishna says in the Gita, happen in nature, not in the soul. Now there's a nice clarifying point for the Jnana Yogi, or for the one who's using the left-hand side of the bird, the right-hand side of the bird's wings right now, you see, to keep itself afloat. See, it's a clarifying point. Now across the board, we see Bhakti wants you to perform all action as sacrifice. So, detached witness by the Jnana Yoga and performing all actions as sacrifice with the Bhakti Yoga. Either way, the ego is being taken out of the quotient. Or, you say, the Jnani would say, well, the world's not real, so any acts I do in it also are not real. They're all happening in nature, not in the soul. And the soul is just the observer. The soul's reading the book of nature, and nature is where all action is taking place, but the soul doesn't move when it reads the book. It just takes it all in, closes the book and puts it down. So that's the Jnana Yoga perspective. See? The Bhakti Yoga perspective is God is in everything, so I have to make everything an offering. So every act I do is going to be an offering to the Lord. not to the ego, not to people, not to human beings. I can't go and serve human beings. This is not good. It's not going to be good for them. I have to go serve God and human beings. If you serve them as human beings, they tend to stay human. You might have noticed. But if you serve God in them, the human nature begins to turn divine. So that's the whole trick, if you will, of work as worship, labor as love. Those ideas that Vivekananda brought forward to us in the English language. He was a great Sanskritist, and he spoke Bengali. And when he learned the English, he began to put these turns of phrase. God is not in the world is in God. Do all work as worship. Do all labor as love. You just read his complete works and you'll see how he took the English language and just turned it on its ear and infused it with the spirituality of India, of these great darshanas. So the Jnani side, I'm going to detach from the results of all action. The Bhakti side, I'm going to make it all an offering. And then you have the two wings of the bird. These might be applicable in different situations of your life in any given day. But some actions you're going to have to determine whether it's best to be the observer or the sacrificer. And other actions you might have to do the opposite, take on the sacrifice. So to detach or to engage, see. To be or not to be is not the question. It's whether to attach and to engage, that's the question. Because to be or not to be is not a question. It shouldn't be to the Indian seer. You are. So you are true being. You can't not be. Nothing doesn't exist. You always are. Everything is. There are many ways to say that. So the real question is whether to engage or whether to detach, and when, to know when to do that. And that's the karma yoga side of it, you see. So the body will be guided by wisdom and devotion as it comes around in course, and will be guided, all three will be guided by your meditation, which is the time when you meet the divine face to face. Like Gandhi said about Sri Ramakrishna Paramahamsa, when we see Ramakrishna, we see God face to face. Mahatma Gandhi said that. So a great avatar, great soul like that leaves no doubt. And you lay your eyes on a soul like that, this is your meeting with God in form. This is your chance. And it can happen even several hundred years after that soul has passed from the body. You might have noticed. People are still worshiping Christ after 2,000 years and Buddha after 2,550 years. But the fresher the manifestation, the better. This new dispensation of Sri Ramakrishna is only a couple hundred years old, if that. So we have a great opportunity to meet God in the parlor, in the drawing room, right there in the heart. That's what he said himself. I meet the devotees here in the heart. I can't go any lower. This is where I'll meet you. He used to say that. He said, those who want truth in this age will come here. And he'd hit his own heart. So I think that's a twofold meaning. They'll come to the heart chakra where the devotees meet with God in the Nara Leela. They'll also come to Ramakrishna, who is the divine manifestation in the sage. The avatar, the Kali avatar. So you can see where I'm going with this. Scriptures, contemplation, meditation, and action. Right? Taking aspects right out of the four yogas themselves and making them a party for study. Subjects for study inside of each yoga. This is how to integrate or how to synthesize. It is the art of Ananya Bhakti, the yoga of non-separation. And again, you can't just say the term and say, that's lovely, that's pretty, I like that. Or take it a parabhakti, you see, supreme devotion. But you're going to have to get in and cut it up, see. Put it together in different ways, look at it in different forms. Roll your mind over it. That's Shruti and Smriti, see. Hear it and then begin to contemplate it. Well, let's look at the mantra then. Recitation of the mantra in line with meaning, insight, and willpower. We have the mantra as a part of the Jnana Yoga, darshana. Across here, how does Bhakti look at the mantra? Recitation of the mantra in line with love, empathy, and self-surrender. So take or choose any of those great words. Monopoli Pajakali Icha Hoy Torjaya Chari Guru Data Moha Mantra Nivaneshi Japakori Monopoli Pajakali. O mind, meditate on Mother Kali using any method of worship you like. Or simply repeat the seed mantra given to you by your guru, planted in your heart. That's what he's saying. Meditate on the mystery of Mother Kali using any method of devotion or wisdom you want, as we were just saying here. Using the jnana way of meaning, insight, and willpower. What's meaning? By knowing what every little matra means in the mantra. Do you know what every matra means? You might know what every word means in it, but you know what every matra means, every letter. And you know that inside of each matra there are hundreds and thousands of particles. Just like there are particles in food, there are particles in objects, we know now, due to quantum physics, and there are particles in the body called nadis, streams of life force moving. So, meditate on the meaning. You could spend hours doing that. I do. I have. Where do you think I came up with 250 of these? Are they just like magic them? Prestidigitation? Sim salabim.
Sim salabim.
See, all of a sudden the charts came out. No, I've thought about them for 40 years, ever since my teacher first put the seed of the mantra in my heart. Monopoli Bhaja Kali, he was a worshipper of Kali. Sri Ramakrishna was Kali avatar. So, meaning. I mean, you could stop right there, go no further. We could talk about that for the rest of the 2 hours. Meaning, what's in a word, they say? Everything is in a word. But you have to take the word down to matras, and the matras down to particles, and understand it not just on the level of intellect, which is what the Westerner is prone to do. That's one level. It's at least more than illiteracy, although Sri Ramakrishna himself was illiterate. It is at least an intellectual advantage that we have on most other people with our learning, but what we really want is higher learning. Aparavidya has been known from time out of mind. Science, math, astronomy, arts. But the Paravid is known by very few. We just chanted that. Well, very, very few have ever heard of the Atman. Fewer still, when they hear of it, even try to contemplate it or comprehend it. That's their conclusion by observation over many lifetimes. There's been an observer watching us live and die. We ourselves are that observer. That's why we know there are many lifetimes in us, because somebody's been watching. And we're still here watching. Have we gone away? You and I could have been sitting like this thousands of years ago saying these very same things. This isn't new. This is ancient. Better yet, it's timeless. But how many times do we have to sit here like this? See, How much problem did it take us to get here? How many obstacles did we have to encounter to be here like this together? So, oh when, oh Lord, oh when will come that moment when through teachings and meditation I will realize the truth in this very life. And the truth shall set me free. So, in line with the mantra, you have meaning, insight, and willpower. That's what the Jnani wants you to get out of the mantra. That's what the Jnani is thinking when he thinks mantra. The Bhakta is thinking, when he thinks mantra, love, empathy, and self-surrender. That's going to be my vehicle. That's how I'm going to get rid of this rascally ego and take it down to the least common denominator, get it out of the way, out of the picture, and then I will see my beloved face to face. The mantra is the name of God. As soon as I say it, God will appear. It's that deep faith that comes. And if you loved your teacher and your teacher gave you the mantra, then your respect for it, your reverence for it is even that greater, that much greater. Particularly if it came from a long line of people who have said that mantra. I gave a mantra in prison to one woman several weeks ago. I think God will forgive me for that. But the poor dear is in for life. What can I do? She wanted the mantra. I gave it to her. She was ready for it. The prison walls will be nothing to her now, as the mantra will open up the freedom which is within her. A freedom which is not founded or based on anything external. Any walls or bars or impediments that are external cannot keep out the light of the mantra. It's not like an earthly light. You can put up a curtain. So mantra has so many sides to it, and it's shared by all four of these. The Jnani wants it, as we just said. The Bhakti thinks of it another way. But the meditator also is using it. Most meditators will start out with the mantra to calm the mind, and then when they calm the mind through mantra, then they can get into a state of formlessness. And then when they come out of that state of formlessness and they feel a little disoriented, coming back to this old waddled, as my teacher used to call it, this world, then the mantra will occur to them again, and they'll have a station to bring themselves back into form. In and out, in and out. The only thing you have to bring yourself back out of deep sleep is the ego. It's pretty dependable for that, too. It wants you to come back and enjoy the world, so it's going to bring you out of deep sleep back into dreaming and waking. But the seer doesn't go into deep sleep as a fool. Goes in as a seer and dissolves the universes in name and form that occur in waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and brings them back due to his own insight, see? Due to his own willpower, because he knows the mantra and has faith in the mantra. He knows it inside out, every mantra. Most mantras begin with Om, so A, U, and M is going to be the first triple object of his study. What does A mean? What does U mean? What does M mean? I got to go ask my teacher. I have to go consult the scriptures, the Shruti. I have to memorize it, Smriti. I have to see Itihasa, how many people used it in the past and what record they left behind of doing the mantra. See how it all connects, just all the time? There's nowhere that you can go or can't go there you won't find this connecting power. And unlike the connecting power of nature, which you want to get out of, the connecting power of wisdom leads you out of bondage, not back in. connecting power of nature, the interconnectedness of all things, leads you back into bondage, which is where you go when you come out of deep sleep, back into bondage. In deep sleep, you were at least momentarily free from form, but now you've covered yourself with it again. Congratulations. And when you cover yourself with it again, then you think, gee, I wish I could get out. This rascally little boy, Hari, you see, put a sheet over his head one night and went and scared his sister. She was really scared. Boo! He popped into the room, and scared her. But she was a discriminating little girl. And she said, I don't think ghosts exist. Why did I get so scared? The next night, Hari had this fun again on his sister. He put the sheet and went back in to the room, you see, to scare her. And she was a little scared, and she looked more carefully. But the third night, she actually walked up to him and ripped the sheet off and said, I see it's you, you rascal. So we may get scared a little bit in our deep sleep state, in our formless state. But when we come back into form again and we see the comparison between form and formlessness, then we will, the next time we go into meditation, the next time we have that rare opportunity of going formless consciously, not going formless unconsciously like in deep sleep, but going formless consciously, the opportunity of having samadhi at whatever level, then we will strip the covering away. And we will do it boldly. And then we will have willpower and insight. Well, if we've done it once, we know we can do it again. That's the stuff of a Jivan Mukta, a living liberated soul. It's what a living liberated soul can do all the time. Swami Vivekananda, probably one of the best examples of that. Read about him and his life. It's not just his complete works that are available to us, but it's a copious record of his life, based on so many people that saw him both in India and in America in the 18 and 1900s. So we see a Jivan Mukta walking around on earth. Actually, a Nityasiddha would be a better way of saying it. An eternally perfect soul, is what Ramakrishna called him. So mantra, very important there. The final entry there is devotion to the path of discrimination to gain pure love. But the Bhakta says devotion to the path of love to gain pure discrimination. So you can see how both devotion and discrimination are important to both sides of the coin, and both the Bhakta and the Jnani use them both in their own way. Under Jnana Yoga, devotion to the path of discrimination will remove ignorance. Nahi jnanena sadrisham pavitramiha vijite. Discriminating knowledge is the greatest purifier in all the worlds, Krishna says. And he's the God of love in India. So he's telling you in the Gita, if you have discrimination, then you will all of a sudden gain pure love. Again, beautiful songs sung about that. Prodita Satya Vibodha Marichi Proksida Vishya Padartha Satatvaha Bhava Paramrita Nirbhara Purne Tvayaham Admati Nirvritam Memi. One of the beautiful verses out of the Bhairava Stotram by Abhinavagupta. He wants to tell you, this is basically pure knowledge, pure devotion, and pure love. These are the gifts that Shiva bestows on his precious devotees, he says. So, knowing this, may all the impurities of my mind become like dust beneath Shiva's dancing feet. That's how he sings it. May all the impurities of my mind become like dust beneath Shiva's dancing feet, because he has given me pure knowledge, pure devotion, and pure love. So, this is how the Jnani, singing a devotional song, would express it. When we were on tour in the early days with Jaima Music, all over the world, mostly in the United States, but other countries too, and we would sing these beautiful songs to people. We'd have a 1-month tour, maybe give 24, 25 concerts. So almost every night we were giving a concert in a different state. We would drive a day to another state, give a concert at a location, all prearranged and with Lex Hickson in tow to do our translations for us. So we would give these beautiful offerings to different kinds of people in the West. Let's see. Sometimes we'd use Indian dancers and tabla players, and it's a big production. So I remember on several occasions being with Lex at the break or after the concert, and people would come up and say, "Oh, those are beautiful devotional songs," and he would say, "Wait a minute, those are not devotional songs. Those are devotional wisdom songs." Because we were playing to an element back in the 70s and 80s that was all into kirtan and dancing. It was the early kirtan movement in the West. And Lex didn't particularly think very highly of that, dancing and singing. He loved to do it. The time was right. But what he wanted was people to do away with their ignorance via discrimination so they could have pure love. Then the dancing wouldn't be affected. You wouldn't say, I think I'll go dance at a kirtan tonight, you see. You would break into dance right where you were. You'd stand up and start dancing. Didn't matter if people were looking or not, or if there was music or going or not, or if you were dressed in your best yoga clothes or not. See? It was spontaneous. They say that was how Sri Ramakrishna danced, like a plume of smoke and a lion combined. That was the description. When Mother took him over and he just stood up and started dancing. A sight to see. So we want to use this discrimination to do away with ignorance so that we can gain pure love. And then everything will be a dance. The ocean will be dancing for us. The trees will be dancing in the wind for us. Crowds of people moving through the city will be a dance. You see, it'll all be divine. Well, across the board here then, Bhakti is saying, but how about devotion to the path of love to gain pure discrimination? So Bhakti wants to put that first foot forward. See, love is the foundation for everything. And then there's no arguing with that. So what happens to the Bhakta when he sincerely loves his ishtam, or her ideal, her chosen ideal form? Then, Krishna says in the Gita, then they come to me and I give them the discrimination which will free them. See? There's the God of love talking from the opposite standpoint again. Yes, when they get devotion to me, then they will come to me and I will give them the discrimination by which they will get free. Can you call Jnana superior to Bhakti or Bhakti superior to Jnana? Are you going to get into that old bag again? Or even once you get into it over ages, it becomes a sort of an antagonistic fight between the two perspectives, between the Vaishnavas and the Shaivites. See? But there was a story about Ram, Vaishnava, and Shiva, the Shaivite God, you see. They were talking and they got into a little tiff, you see. They argued with each other. They got a little heated, and so they turned and walked away from each other. As Ram was walking away from Shiva, said, "What have I done? I may have insulted the God of wisdom. I'm going to go back right away and apologize." So he turned on his heel to go back. In the meantime, Shiva was walking and he stopped and he said, Ram is my own heart. He's devotion incarnate. He's God in human form. What have I done? I have to go back and apologize. He turned. So they met in the middle and hugged, you see. The matter was over in seconds. But Ram's monkeys and Shiva's demons heard about the fight. And they went on warring for hundreds of years. Long after the two had already made up, seconds before the tiff, after the tiff even happened, you see. There's a very good story about keeping these distinctions, holding these distinctions, that brother and sister wouldn't talk with each other for a whole lifetime because of a few words that were exchanged. It happens all the time. These grudges are held. See, this karma is built up around them. All around nothing, really. And we can't see through that and just forgive. They say forgiveness is healing. It would have been better if we never would have had to forgive in the first place. If we just, like my teacher used to say, well, we have to agree to disagree then. And the matter was over. Each went their own way, found out that what the other was saying was true, and came back and said, you know, from that perspective, I see what you're saying. I can acknowledge that. So this is the way to integrate paths. Synthesize yogas. Integral yoga, purna yoga, it's called. Or Aurobindo called it the synthesis of yoga, or integral yoga. He wrote big tomes on it. So a simple Hawaiian bird can teach it to you. Put your left wing here, put your right wing there. See, the body and the tail feathers, it's all one yoga. See, it's all one state of consciousness. So that last one is particularly fun, I think. The Jnani says, devotion to the path of discrimination to gain pure love. And the Bhakta says, devotion to the path of love to gain pure discrimination. The last quotes underneath each here is what I was saying. Under the Jnana side, Krishna says, to those who know me in full, I reveal myself. I am dear to them and they are dear to me. So to know him first, not just to see him and say, oh, I love you. See? It's love at first sight. When did love at first sight ever last very long? See? You have to come to know the person and then probably you'll divorce them. Or you'll know the wrong side of them. You see, you know they're studying their ego, but you haven't studied their divine self yet, because you haven't seen the divine self in you yet. The other side, Krishna says, to those who love me, I give them the discrimination by which they come to me. So both of those are necessary. Vivekananda puts it this way in one of his most beautiful quotes. This is the new religion of this age. The synthesis of yoga, knowledge, devotion, and work. The propagation of knowledge and devotion down to the very lowest, without distinction of age or sex. Thus I want to give truth dry, hard reason, softened in the sweetest syrup of love, made spicy with intense work, and cooked in the kitchen of yoga, so that even a baby can easily digest it. And there you have the new dispensation, according to Swami Vivekananda. Taking the 4 yogas which he brought to us, and yes, turning them into a synthesis for those of us who have created them as separate airtight compartments, but really showing us the innate oneness of them already. It's not something you really need to synthesize. You only take something apart, like a scientist does, to see how the whole thing works, and you put it back together. But it was whole to begin with. You just didn't know it's working, so you had to take it apart. And that helped your discrimination. And when you had knowledge, devotion came, and love came to you. So these 2 complementary paths is what I name this chart. And it's very much in keeping with our Ananya Bhakti, the devotion of non-separation. Now, let's move in the remaining time in this first half to the non-touch yoga, Asparsha yoga. See? It's mentioned by Gaudapada, who was Shankaracharya's teacher's teacher, most likely. He also very well known in all philosophical circles for having composed that commentary on the Mandukya Upanishad. Mandukya Upanishad is like 12 slokas long, and it's all about Om. And so Gaudapada takes each sloka and does a commentary on it, and it became famous. And in that commentary, aspects of it were things like this, the non-touch yoga, Sparsha yoga. He has the firebrand, a beautiful chapter on the firebrand. It's a set of slokas about the illusion of things. You take a firebrand at night and a stick with a fiery end and twirl it. It looks like a circle, right? It's not a circle. So your eyes are playing tricks on you, as it were. So he uses that phenomenon to illustrate the illusoriness of Maya. He starts out here by saying, I salute the best of beings, who with incomparable jnana has realized that all beings are unborn and infinite, like the sky. I salute him on bended knee, he who teaches the non-touch yoga for the benefit of all beings, free of compromise, superior and unopposed. The way he speaks about Advaita is very beautiful like that. So he calls it infinite, like the sky. Reminds us that later on, when his student, or his student's student, Shankaracharya, was teaching, there was a great disciple of his named Hasta Amalaka, and he sang it this way. Samasteshu vashtush panushu tam evam yatha nishprabham manyate chati mudaha tata bhavad patiyo muda drishte sa nichopalabdis swarupohamatma. He says, there is only this one, existing in all beings and everything existing in it. It filters down and touches all hearts, yet nothing can touch it. It is like the sky, pure and serene, subtle and impossible to taint. That one am I. I am that one, and there can be none other. So you can see how Gaudapada's teachings got utilized later by disciple after disciple, and finally trickling down into Hasta Amalaka's mind, got expressed in one of the verses of this stotram. Hasta Amalaka stotram, it's named after him. Hasta Amalaka means fruit in the palm of your hand. The implication is that I have come to know through the synthesis of all the yogas of my Atman, and now I can take it out and see it, just as if you would easily take a fruit and look at it in the palm of your hand. It's that easy for me to see my own self, to know my own nature. So, an illumined being says that. Then later on, of course, that Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam, Bhaja Govindam Mudamate Samprapte Sanihite Kale Nahi Nahi Rakshati Dukrin Karne. That beautiful hymn that Shankara wrote the first verses on, and got expanded by every acharya of the Shankara Mat, every generation, until the hymn has now got dozens and dozens of verses. In one lifetime they added one verse, each of them. So it's been a song that's been growing since 700 AD. Maybe one or two verses added every 120 years or so. So now, sometime we'll sing that whole thing on Shankara's birthday, which is coming up in May, by the way. We will have a beautiful retreat on the confluence of the Wind Rivers and Columbia River in the Columbia River Gorge. Beautiful location where we will talk about Buddhism and Vedanta. I intend to take Advaita Vedanta and Zen Buddhism and show how they too are synthesized, how they are really innately one. Buddha was a Hindu man, if you want to put it that way. So in that way we see that these darshanas of India are naturally one with one another. So, non-touch yoga, what does that mean? He says, he salutes that one of incomparable jnana who has realized that all beings are unborn and infinite like the sky, which reminded me of this beautiful verse in the Hasta Amalaka Stotram. It is untouched and pure like the sky. Like the sky carries different scents. The ethers carry planets and so forth, but they never get tainted by it. It stays indivisible, undisplaceable. Ether is undisplaced. Air can be displaced, but ether can't be displaced. So it's all pervasive. It's one of the best examples, metaphors for divine reality on the physical level then. That is, if you acknowledge the existence of ether. You have to get by that first.
Mm-hmm.
Some sciences don't. What are the requisites of non-touch yoga? As we look into the subject of Ananya Bhakti, that is the devotion of non-separation, we go a little bit away from the practical, the devotional, and the discriminatory towards the transcendent when we look at something like Gaudapada's Karika. But nonetheless, the results are translatable into things that we very much empathize with, understand, and seek. The practice of non-duality, if you want to call it that, it's a kind of contradiction in terms, but Shankara himself, while we're speaking of it, said, I like to keep the mirror of my mind wiped clean every day so I can have the best vision of divine reality. So if my mind is, once I've realized God, I still have a mind. See, if I haven't left the body yet, I still have a mind. And the mind, by its very nature, collects defects. So I have to keep it wiped clean every day, even if I'm an illumined soul. See? So that's the practice of non-duality. It's not like taking dust fragments off of a mirror, literally, but it's looking into the mind and watching its tendency to gravitate back toward root ignorance, to believe in things unreal, start to fall out of yoga, out of equanimity. Some little thing, brood on some little thing, and all of a sudden the mind is taking you in tangents, you see. So he says, I want to keep my mind polished every day, like a mirror. So that's the practice non-duality, Advaita Vedanta sadhana. We talked about it in the very earliest days of SRV's inception. Advaita Vedanta sadhana. One of our earliest newsletters had an article on that. It's also in our Nectar journals, an article on that. So some of the requisites are this: you get freedom from fear, self-control and perseverance. You moderate all desires and enjoyments. Remember we just chanted Satyena labhyastapasa hesa atma samyagnena brahmacharyena nityam. So we get realization of ourself through veracity, austerity, knowledge, and moderation. The middle way. We always moderate senses and appetites. We even have to moderate bhakti and jnana, don't we? There's another way of putting it. If you want to practice the Ananya Bhakti, the yoga of non-separation, then it's not just a matter of synthesizing, integrating, or realizing the innate oneness of things, but it's also having to moderate between them, as I did here. So moderate desires and enjoyments. Awaken the mind and have samadhi. And there's a good goal for you. If you happen to sit down and next New Year's and say, somebody asks you, what's your New Year's resolutions? Well, actually I've been thinking about it and I've decided I want to awaken my mind and have samadhi. Have you ever heard anyone say that about their New Year's resolutions? Probably rarely. Or gain enlightenment. What is enlightenment? It is the remembrance of God moment to moment. That's called enlightenment. Have you tried that? How easily the mind gets distracted away. So to awaken the mind is going to be to awaken it from the age-old sleep of ignorance, to get yogic insomnia, they say, Lex Sixon used to say. And as we were just saying about a mind that's in non-duality, does that mean it's all perfect and pure, all hunky-dory? Or is it that he's going to have to stabilize the mind during unrest? Will the mind go into periods of unrest because that's the way the mind is? Any mind. If you talk about original mind or pure mind or God's mind, then you're talking about something that's extraordinary mind. It's not ordinary mind. But if you're talking about manas, that vehicle which consciousness has to operate in, which it has to use as a station, that all beings have to come down to it, then it's fraught with dualities. It's full of imperfections. You'll never purify that mind. That's not what we're talking about when we say purify your mind. We're talking about realizing your true nature, your original mind. That manas is dual by nature. It's a good bit of information to put in the old hopper. What am I doing when I'm purifying the mind? And the senses. It's not like taking my eyeball out like Captain Bligh and polishing it off or something. You see, you're putting it back in. No, I've purified my senses. Or getting into the mind with some scrub brush or something, you see, into the brain. The brain is just a bit of flesh. But that mind is, you're going to have to, again, just like you know the mantras of Om, A-U-M, or the meanings of words, you're going to have to know the distinctions between lower mind, intellectual mind, higher mind, original mind, and no mind. Non-touch yoga is no mind. As my teacher used to say, humorously, no mind, no matter. No matter, never mind. If there is no mind, there is no matter, there's no world. Instance, when you go to sleep tonight in deep sleep, there's no world. Sim salabim. Presto changeo. No world. I dissolved it. Or I went away from it somehow. But it can't be denied you went into formlessness. So it's gone. See? So when the mind experiences periods of unrest, then the real test of an illumined soul is if you can stabilize it. And then the real test of a past master is how quickly he can stabilize it. How quickly he can recognize. Abhikya, recognition, see, is one of the great tantric teachings, one of the greatest of all tantric teachings. You have to recognize a thing first before you can do something about it, or to it, or for it. Like if you recognize human beings are God, walking around on two legs, then you can do something for it, for humanity. But not until. So it's the same on all levels of existence. And philosophy then would be no different, as we see. So recognition is going to be one of the great stabilizers for the mind. You catch it really quick. Like Vivekananda said, the karmas of those good, pure souls come back quicker to them. The karmas of those impure souls take a long time to come back. So that's because of their power of recognition. When some karma surfaces in the mind, they recognize it right away and adjust. Or when some anger flares up, or some lust, or some jealousy, or some fear, that's how they get freedom from feer. Is when it comes up, they recognize it. And then all of a sudden they're not afraid anymore because they recognize it was their fear and they could do something about it. So that's a beautiful teaching. Stabilize the mind during unrest. Very Buddhist too. The big connection between Patanjali, Shankara, Gaudapada, Nagarjuna, and Lord Buddha. That whole phase of 550 BC up to around 750 AD, heavily laden, laced in a beautiful way with the confluence of Buddhism and Advaita and Vedanta. The final one here, attain the goal, Brahman. That's the practice of non-duality. I leave you with these to think about at our break, and we will keep this chart showing and maybe show this chart again during the break for our live streaming audience, and we will return in about 15 minutes. Thank you for your attention to this precious subject. Om. we have been looking into Ananya Bhakti in terms of bringing the paths of jnana and bhakti together, realizing their innate oneness, and then we switched to the non-touch yoga and got about halfway through that chart in the first half, and we looked at those requisites for the non-touch yoga, what the practice of non-duality actually consists of: self-control and perseverance, moderate desire and enjoyment, awakening the mind and having samadhi, stabilizing the mind during periods of unrest, and attaining to the goal called Brahman. So we can see that non-duality, although the term is a bit obscure and the practices are also rather esoteric, there are some. And if you want to put it in Gaudapada's way of thinking, in his line of devotees, Shankara also said that one has to stay close to Brahman all the time to be able to deal with the prarabdha karma. That's the karma of your present life. But for sanchita karma and agami karma, that is the past, the karma of the past mainly, you just need the fire of yoga. So he wanted you to put together the fire of yoga, which is a kind of sadhana, in this case a practice of non-duality, with the, you might say, practicing the presence of Brahman, or always acknowledging Brahman, your oneness with Brahman. And so it means a way that the non-dualist or the Advaitist or the illumined soul lives once realization has already occurred in the mind. Bondage is in the mind, realization is also in the mind, as Sri Ramakrishna said. So when one determines that state of mind one prefers to exist in, to abide in, abiding in the Atman, we call it Vedanta, then one stays there. That's the default zone, that's the dwelling place, that's the home of peace, as they say in the Shaivite tradition, which Gaudapada and Shankara are adherents of, Shaivite tradition, Shiva. So those requisites of the non-touch yoga, sparsha yoga, very precious to know about, no matter what path that you're adhering to in any given day or year. That is what practice you're doing. Now, he also lists for us the results of non-touch yoga, which is the fruits of this non-dual practice. You see them there. One secures right knowledge. Could almost be again talking about the Eightfold Path of the Buddha. To get right knowledge or right orientation, right discrimination is very key and very common to both Buddhism and Vedanta, or as one friend of ours calls it, Buddhanta. That the two are so similar and alike in so many ways. Securing right knowledge then, of course, would be that property of discrimination once one gets it from the Jnana Yoga path, or even gets it from the Bhakti Yoga path, whichever way one takes to it and secures it. We know it's of its import even by the very name of our own ideal here in Shaktism, in Advaita, Shakta Advaitavada. Swami Vivekananda, he named himself after that power of discrimination and its import. So through that one can secure right knowledge, and of course that's going to not only free one but keep one protected in the line of this kind of problems of the mind, like unrest of the mind coming up, or old karmas coming back from sanchita into the prarabdha, into the present karma periphery. One is able to deal with them right away due to this right knowledge. One adjusts quickly, as we spent so much time on that, stabilizing the mind. Again, many teachings in Buddhism occurring to my mind right away just by saying that, stabilize the mind during unrest. It's so common to the Buddhist perspective. Tibetan Buddhism, particularly the Mahamudra, as we've studied it occasionally here, when mind experiences unrest, stabilize it immediately is one of the facets of that teaching. The quicker you can do it, the better, because you won't create any new karmas, and you won't give that tendency of your mind any room to grow in time, any way to expand. So it's immediately to cut it down right away, cut it out when it happens, and then there won't be this syndrome that Vivekananda mentions, that those who are less spiritually advanced, their karma takes a long time to come back to them. And the problem with that is that they can't trace it back to its cause. And so the mantra becomes, why me? And when it's obvious, why you? Because you did something that was ill-considered, and you're just now getting your fruit. But if you had have practiced the non-touch yoga, if you had have known the requisites and the practices of a non-dual practice, then you would have certain fruits that would, once you secured, keep you in the karmic crush of things right away. As soon as something rises in the mind, immediate karma would come from it, and you'd immediately squelch it right there. And that's living on the edge of Mother Kali's sword, is how we say it in Divine Mother tradition. We want to live on the edge of Mother Kali's wisdom sword. As it cuts through ignorance, we get the first view of the truth, fresh. So it's beautiful songs written about that are springing into my mind too. Secures right knowledge then, because remember, this non-dual or Advaita, non-duality they call it nowadays, has some adherents that we're not that much in favor of, who say that you don't have to do any practice. If by saying you don't have to do any practice they mean this effortless practice, then we would concur with them. Otherwise, we're going to disagree. We're going to agree to disagree, because we feel like as long as the body-mind mechanism is sustained as a vehicle for consciousness, then because of its imperfect nature, it's fraught with dualities, the mind, and of course the 6 transformations are a part of the body: birth, growth, old age, disease, decay, and death. You can't Advaita those away. If you have a body, the best you can do is to prove yourself to be spirit by not thinking much about the body, as Vivekananda puts it. You don't try and drag God down into the body, you try and raise the body up to God. That is, as you do that, your body will become less gross and more subtle, and then less subtle and more causal, and then less causal and more like the non-touch body, a body that cannot be touched. Like a body made of air, Holy Mother said. Completely transparent. So those, what we call pseudo-Advaitas, if they're talking about having no practice as being doing nothing, then it can't be concurred with. Gaudapada makes it pretty clear, and he might as well be the father of non-dualism in this age, with his beautiful commentary, or Gaudapada's Karika, they call it. He has a quote from it down here, actually, we can take now in sequence. When there is no thought, then there is no taking up, no giving up. At that time, Atmagyan, knowledge of the Atman, is well set in itself and non-originated, remaining equal. This is verily what is known as the non-touch yoga by name. Very difficult of realization by ordinary yogis. So he's even making a marked difference between people who have attained yoga and then masters who are very, very adept at what's called a non-touch yoga, as if there are different atmospheres and different levels of enlightenment, which we know by studying Patanjali and other great teachers that there are different levels of samadhi and different levels of attainment. Anyway, it's enough for us, suffice to understand that when there is no thought, then there's a mind has gone away. And we know that that happens in deep sleep and at the time of death, most likely, for most souls, and also in a good meditation and in samadhi, those 4 times when we go formless. And so we want to raise ourselves into that consciously, is how Vivekananda would put it, not just let it happen to us, death, deep sleep. Even samadhi, I think, or meditation, if it just happens to us, that's maybe spontaneous, it might be very nice, but probably doesn't follow along the points of Jnana Yoga that you, through your own willpower and through your own insight, can make that meditation return the next day. Not just have it happen once, poof, gone. See what I mean? Yes, very nice, thank you. You could say, oh, it's the grace of the mother or whatever. But I'm interested in having that all the time. See? Like there's a story Sri Ramakrishna told. The son had a drinking problem, liked wine. So he came to his father with the problem and said, Father, I have this problem. I'm really attached to wine. And father said, what's wine? And so the boy procured a bottle of it, poured him a glass. Father tasted it. And the son said, no, see what I mean? Now tell me, how can I give it up? The father said, well, you may want to give it up, but I certainly am not giving it up. So using it in an opposite way, of course, Sri Ramakrishna is talking that way about samadhi. Once one finds out about it, one does not want to give it up. One wants to have it all the time. It's the divine intoxication that we're talking about, not the ordinary intoxication. So these true Advaitic exemplars are telling us of a practice by which we can remain in a non-dual state once we arrive there. It's a practice of non-duality, or Advaita Vedanta sadhana. It's recognized, it's a very sort of dichotomous term, but at the same time it's very attracting when you hear it. See, what is that? Non-touch yoga. Doesn't it immediately kind of perk your interest? Because you could talk about the 4 yogas, and you could talk about asanas yoga, and you could talk about different yogas. You can even talk about the Yoga Sutras. But when you hear something like non-touch yoga, it immediately attracts your attention. What is that? I'm interested in that. Might have been the same way that you were first attracted to the word Advaita or non-duality or Kaivalya when you first heard it. So all of this really is by way of securing right knowledge. The second level here is non-attachment via mature discernment. That is, when dispassion happens, it happens in 10 different levels. That's how much they have looked into the phenomena, if you want to call it that, of detachment, vairagya. And all the way up to para vairagya, the supreme detachment, which is just absolutely natural, like Ramakrishna would have para vairagya. It was like the crown of thorns, just natural detachments. But for Ramakrishna's case, it was this para vairagya was his crown. He was just naturally detached from everything. He didn't have to practice detachment or worry about bad habits or weaknesses and all that. He naturally came in a state of highest detachment. So 10, then 9, tivra vairagya, and then 8, asam vedana kind of detachment, and then 7. It goes right on down the scheme to the mildest, meekest detachment that the beginning aspirant starts out with. Oh, I think I'll get a little bit of distance from my family. See, they're giving me a lot of problems. Get a little bit of distance from my sick cat so I can go on retreat. I think I'll get a little bit of distance from it. So maybe I can do something that's going to help all of them. Cats, animals, humans, ancestors. So if I can get free, if I can attain the non-touch yoga, then I can be a major benefit to all beings. At all times. See, then that's going to be my mental perspective. That's going to be the right knowledge which I've gained. That's going to be the atmosphere I live in. That's going to be the way I walk around. They say you should walk your talk. Well, a devotee who is living in the non-touch yoga, he's walking around every car that goes by, every animal he sees, every bird that flies by, every situation he encounters and so forth. He's thinking, how can I be of benefit there? And we're back to this idea of whether to engage or not to engage, right? Sometimes just being there and witnessing the situation is enough to benefit the situation, if you're that kind of person. You don't have to get in there and involve yourself. Just God watching through you is going to bring healing to that situation the way it is. That's the spontaneous, non-touch way. If these beings do enter into some sort of activity, they're going to do it in conformity with the 4 yogas. So they're going to do it, karma yoga, in conformity with all of these other yogas, so that the least amount of karma is going to be created for all beings involved, including themselves. Doesn't it sound like something coming up in the mind as a matter of unrest? See, something not right with the world comes up in your mind. Don't you think it happened to Christ in the wilderness, the dark night of the soul, or it happened to Lord Buddha under the bo tree? Don't you think there's unrest in the mind when the consciousness visits the mind? Yes, there is. And sometimes it's around a very small matter, and sometimes it's around huge cosmic proportional matters of cosmic proportion. So they're going to have to adjust, to acclimatize, and to stabilize as quick as they can. Because it's not just one cat or one human or one situation that's at stake. It's the well-being of the whole world that's at stake for them. They're at such a high level of consciousness that any aberration that runs through the mind is going to cause some problem in the world. That's why a person cannot be violent and become enlightened, because they could use that violence to destroy their enemies with a thought. So that's against yoga, non-violence. So it's going to take them off their spiritual path. So Mother's not going to invest ordinary people with the power to kill their enemies through mental processes. They're going to have to go out and get a knife or a gun to do that. But the yogi, so-called yogi, could bring about, through these powers, I was just answering your question in the Raja Yoga, that's why I'm thinking of this, Raja Yoga lesson for next week, by these powers could bring about harm of other people. There was a story of Milarepa before Marpa came to him with the Hindu yoga and the Buddhism of the time in Tibet, that he had committed a sin against one of his relatives, a murder, and so he had to be put through a lot of austerity to get rid of the sin of committing that murder. And Marpa put him through that by having him build a house and tear it down 7 or 8 times. Build me a house. Not good enough. Tear it down. Build it again. That's a lot of work. So, however, whatever it's going to take to get rid of the aberrations of the mind, so that yoga, so that the Divine Mother can invest one with yoga, and then that's what the seer will do, because they believe so deeply in the power of Divine Mother. Like, for instance, this way. Namaste Jagachintya Mana Swarupe Namaste Mahayogini Jnana Rupe Namaste Sadananda Nanda Swarupe Namaste Jagatarini Traye Durge Namaste Mahayogini. You see, she's the great yogini, the mother of all yoga. Namaste, I salute you. Namaste Jagachintya. Jagachintya, the mother of chintya, of illumination of the mind. It's just one verse. And this Durga Stotram, it's called. It says, for everyone who looks within, your excellent form is the object of meditation. Now, 3 other songs just occurred to my mind when I said that. See, about yogis meditating in a cave. See, on the Divine Mother, because they want it to be dark so that when her light comes, her light's going to be all that more wonderful to behold. Because if they saw that light in the sun, it wouldn't quite be as brilliant. But if they're in a dark cave and completely shut down, when that light comes, it's going to be thrilling to behold. Thrilling to behold. So you are the consummate yogini, Mahayogini, the auspicious one. Even Lord Shiva turns blissful when you appear. He falls in a swoon, see, when he sees her, because she's so magnificent. So you talk about showers beneficent on all creatures. That's where I'm headed with this, you see. That divine grace of Advaita Vedanta, which is her very atmosphere, showers grace and beneficence on all creatures. But abhikya, recognize it. Pratyabhikya, recognize it with your own intelligence. Pratibha, see, flint-like intelligence. Got to be fired up, see, in order to recognize her as the giver of all beneficence. See, it takes a very, very subtle mind, very inward drawn mind. This Divine Mother then is Jagachintya, she's Manaswarupa, she's the essence of all minds that are illumined. And even Lord Shiva becomes ecstatic by merely seeing her. Even thinking about her brings that. Namaste Sadanandananda. See, the Ananda of truth. See, the truth, the bliss of those who realize the truth, that's her bliss. Sadanandananda. And she's Jagat Tarini. She's the one who has compassionate on Jagat, the world. She's the compassionate one. Tara, Kali, Durga. All names for the same goddess, the formless one. So, she showers beneficence on all creatures. But as Holy Mother said, they come to me and they pray to me for things. And I give them the answer to their prayer. And they go away with little things. But where's their devotion to God? They're happy with these little trinkets, these little baubles of relative existence. But why, if we came before the Divine Mother of the universe, wouldn't we fall before her and say, take away my suffering, take away with your compassion my suffering, and give me the truth, give me vision, give me highest vision. Why ask for trinkets from the Divine Mother of the universe? And get those from the Mother of the world Mother, nature. So that's one of the results of non-touch yoga. You realize this holy, beneficent being. And you get realization of the highest happiness. That highest happiness, often called bliss too, is sung about in so many different ways too. Like in this way, is one particular way. Navaraga Koti Shashi Vinindita Raga Rage Ranjita Koti Shashi Vinindita Bijuli chamake arupa aloke Phulake shihori jivana Bijuli chamake arupa aloke Phulake shihori jivana Chinta Taya Mama Manasa Hori Chidgana Niranjana. Even more beauteous in fresh blossoming love that shames the splendor of a million moons. Like lightning gleams the glory of his form, filling the soul with deep joy and sweet ecstasy. So, freedom, realization of the highest happiness. That's beyond joy, beyond elation. There's only one word for it, that's ananda, an unalloyed, uninterrupted bliss. Does Advaita Vedanta sound dry now to you? Does jnana and bhakti seem separate to you anymore? Is meditation on formless reality devoid of sweet ecstasy? I ask you. Otherwise, I've been sitting here for 2.5 hours and been talking just to hear myself talk, as you say. Besides all that, one gets freedom from dispute and opposition. The various opinions of the world pass by. Well, a lot of people come to the gurus with questions like that. They have problems because what will other people think? That's the main concern. They say, what will other people think of me if I do this or thus and such? See? Or if I commit to a spiritual path, people will think me to be crazy or weak or antisocial or whatever. See? And so people always have this very self-conscious side to them around their cohorts, their brothers and sisters in humanity. So one of the things non-duality gives you, the devotion of non-separation gives you, is this freedom from opposition and dispute. This comes to bear very beautifully in the Advaita philosophy in Gaudapada's Karika. If you come to retreat and study it with me sometime, I think we've studied it on at least 2 separate retreats in the past 10 years. So it's a subject we approach very gingerly and carefully and only treat it every once in a while. But if you take the Gaudapada's Karika in retreat like that, you'll find out that Gaudapada has a very, very transparent and beautiful way of treating the opinions of others, especially those who have not yet understood the supremacy of non-duality, of this oneness, and are fighting with the Divine Mother of the Universe, as it were, fighting with Lord Shiva about the highest wisdom. Shiva and Shakti know the highest wisdom, that's their very path. When you talk about Kali or Durga, you're talking about those great mothers who preside over cremation ground, that is death, and they breathe the mantra into the soul. They, even before that, during life, they are transmitting the highest wisdom to their votaries. They're trying to get them, through Jnana Yoga, to imbibe the highest wisdom. Hear it again and again, and again and again and again and again. So the mind can't do anything but just sink into it and drown. The ego will drown in it. Sri Ramakrishna said it's like taking a towel and dipping it into water over and over again until it's just saturated, soaked and dripping. He says, take your mind and do that in the company of the Guru and the Sangha. Here, unfortunately, we only do it once a week for 3 hours. But in an ashram that was going full all the time and supported and had many members, it would be something that would be happening twice a day, like on retreat. You'd be living on retreat. Would be your life, and the world wouldn't have a chance to insert itself anymore. But you also have the karma yoga, so you have to go back to your life. So take 3 hours of this great teaching Usually you have to go on retreat to get the non-dual teachings, but under the auspice of the yoga of non-separation, or Ananya Bhakti, the devotion of non-separation, you're getting some teachings from Gaudapada here on the non-touch yoga and its results. So freedom from dispute and argumentation will come to you. You'll feel content. Or as one way of putting this union of jnana and bhakti, you love what you know and you know what you love. And that can be your English mantra for it, to conclude the matter. I know what I love and I love what I know. But if knowledge isn't there, you can't love, and if love isn't there, you can't really know. So both go together like the two wings of the bird. Now another facet here, a result, is transcendent of desire and non-desire. The conventional teaching would be, help me transcend my desires, O Mother. Like Kamalakanta singing, for instance. Yeah, he's got a way of putting it that is always very powerful. He sings, Kamalakanta Bhaiye Branta Bhulesho Namashnadin Kamalakanta Bhaiye Branta Bhulesho Namashnadin Kali Babile Bishad Gotibe Pramad Balibe Bishad Gotibe Pramad Kalina Boli Bijedin Shukir Ashana Karo Arkadin Shukir Ashana Karo Arkadin. He says, bewildered by Maya, Kamalakanta, that's the singer of the song, has forgotten the pain and suffering of 8 months in his mother's womb. He's forgotten how much he suffered in those 8 months of gestation. Misery and pain is the outcome of relative existence. How many more lifetimes of ignorance can I bear? So if you are not attracted to the sweetness of bhakti, and the wisdom isn't getting through to you, then take Kamalakanta's songs with you into meditation. Get transcendence of desire and non-desire. Shukir Vashana Karo Karan. Vashana means desire. And Vashana gives rise to samskaras, complexes, mental complexes. Vashana samskara, therefore, is the ordinary mind's makeup. It's a swamp of mental complexes based in desire. So you try and get non-desire, but Gaudapada says, beyond both desire and non-desire is the non-touch yoga, is the result of non-touch yoga. You're just getting pulled into another duality again when you seek the opposite. Now, the father of yoga took a little bit different tack, and he said, there's klistavrittis and aklistavrittis. You remember the retreats at Wood Valley. Klistavrittis are pain-bearing desires. Aklistavrittis are non-pain-bearing desires. You get rid of the pain-bearing desires by non-pain-bearing desires. So those vibrations, vrittis in your mind, see, that are negative, you have to find a way of dealing with them. So temporarily you're going to use these positive vibrations to annul them, to neutralize them, to attenuate them. See? I like that word because I've been a sound engineer. I played the role as a sound engineer in many of my lives. You see? So basically, if you've got these little pots, you attenuate sound by turning the pot. So when I think of the word attenuating karma, I think just turning the pot in the mind, you see, turning that little dial. Mm-hmm. Away from pain-bearing to non-pain-bearing. And then maybe you can find a neutral place between both. And that's what Gaudapada is talking about here. I salute Gaudapada. He was an illumined soul. How many times did my teacher start off his lectures with that sentence? Well, the culmination of all processes into Brahman, that's a nice way of ending these fruits of non-dual practice. All processes get culminated in the realization of Brahman. It's like saying all things are soluble into Brahman. So a little trip through the non-touch yoga, the ultimate yoga, according to Gaudapada's Karika, as much of it as I could fit on an 8x11 at any rate. Now, I wanted to take you in the remaining time through this chart, which we've glanced at before, but it's nice to go point by point. And it fits very well with our teaching on Ananya Bhakti, because basically when you say prayer, you're pretty much talking about bhakti, aren't you? And when you say meditation, a good case could be made for the point that you're talking about jnanam. So if you put together jnana, bhakti, you could also say I'm putting together meditation and prayer. It would be sort of like saying the motions of jnanam and bhakti are meditation and prayer respectively. So if I get higher wisdom, I want to go meditate on it. It's a natural tendency. I can't get any rest. You see, there's rajas, unrest, restlessness, but then there's divine unrest. Vivekananda had divine unrest. He couldn't sit still. You see, he would pace. And it was all at a very high level. They'd say, my gosh, he's teaching rajas, but he's very rajasic, isn't he? But they didn't know that he had this divine restlessness that was upon him all the time. But on the other hand, take a look at his meditation picture. See, the one that we use on the shrines of the Ramakrishna order. He's completely immersed. He's epitomizing perfect meditation. Exactly the way it's described in the Vaishnava and the Shaivite scriptures. He's got it down. Holy Mother said, he can sit for 700 years that way. Because that's what he does in between lifetimes. He like a wooden statue is how she said it. He'll just sit like that for 700 years. He's absorbed in meditation. So outwardly, a divinely restless person running across the world, spreading the seeds of Advaita Vedanta to everyone. Inwardly, the consummate non-dual yogi in meditation. So there's the Buddha sitting in meditation, for instance. Let's look at the benefits of meditation. First, here's something I put together to introduce us. Both prayer and meditation are crucial to spiritual life. The former connects the soul to its ideal in form, called the Ishtam, that's prayer, and the latter establishes the aspirant in formless reality, called Brahman. The danger common to both is selfishness. For the ego mars prayer and meditation if there is the slightest sense of unripe individuality or personal gain associated with their respective practices. So the ego can get in there in meditation, as we know, and spoil the meditation. We know it can also get in there in prayer and begin asking for ignoble things that probably not only we don't really want, we think we want, or they're actually not good for us. When we get them, they're going to be detrimental for our life. So that's the common danger in both of them, is just to watch the ego, and that would be the opposite pole, wouldn't it? Because in prayer you can watch the ego, and in meditation you can even more closely scrutinize the ego mechanism. So what are the benefits of meditation? We'll look at those, and then we'll look at the limitations or the dangers, and we'll do the same for prayer. Meditation bestows objectivity on the seeking mind, and as, like we said, gets some distance. It hones the power of right discrimination. So when you get viveka and vairagya, discrimination, detachment, then you can go inside, and with those two, you can meditate deeper. You're discriminating away the unreal, right? As Vedanta says. So if you can do that, you can all of a sudden meditate better. Because the unreal is what's dancing on the periphery of your mind all the time. So you're like Maya, causing you to stay on a surface level. And there's a beautiful song, I won't sing it this time, but I can recite part of it. O mind, you're just a small sparkling fish, inhabiting the surface waters of relativity, where death is granted as fishing grounds. Quick, dive deep before death comes. Dive deep into meditation and escape death's net. So somebody was thinking, I think I'll compose a song. What are the lyrics? No. They had discrimination and detachment from the teachings. They said, there's the truth, there's the lyrics, I just have to put them into a certain form and put music to it. See, it's coming the other way. It's not creativity. It's, the thing has already been dissolved and I just need to pull it back down into the creative realm. This is how the yogi does it, and the creative artist does it the opposite way. I've done both, so I know. So when you get this view of the truth from the truth teachings, from the Atmagyan scriptures, then you say, how can I put all of that into manifestation here in this world? And you'll probably have some divine unrest accompany you at that time. You see, you'll be compelled, divinely compelled, to try and bring this truth into some form that people can hear it, listen to it, understand it, follow it. So that's what I think about when I think of meditation honing the power of discrimination. You see what is, and then you come out with some of that and present it. You don't imagine it and then, hope that it's something true and then put it into form, you see. It's coming from a much higher level, yoga. Meditation also increases the ability for mature detachment. There is immature detachment, mridu, meek, it's called, 3 levels of it. And then there's medium, adimatra level of detachment. And then there's supreme, para, vairagya level of detachment. 10 different levels of detachment the seers have taught us about. Read my chart. I'll show it to you sometime. Introduces the subtle presence of non-duality. Now that's nice that that comes in here because we just looked at some of the precious non-dual teachings of Gaudapada from the Mandukya Upanishad commentary. So here you see that meditation can actually introduce you to your formless nature. Where else are you going to get it? Deep sleep and death. Are those going to satisfy you? Deep sleep, you have it every night, but you don't ever think of it as being a territory of your own consciousness, do you? I mean, that's also a gift of Gaudapada, is the 3 states of your consciousness, waking, dreaming, and deep sleep, and Turiya that lies beyond it. So he's actually pinpointed it for you. He's given you an assignment in 2 ways, double entendre. See, an assignment meaning it's an assignment of the 3rd state of your consciousness so that you know it, and you're assigned to go find it. What are you waiting for? Go into it consciously. That's called meditation. So that's why meditation introduces the subtle presence of non-duality to the seeking soul. Before then, maybe he didn't even know there was such a thing as non-duality. He only thought, my father was in heaven, and I have to go find him. Or wait for him for another 2,000 years to come back into form. See how many lifetimes is that? 4, 6, 8. And finally, it ushers in the incomparable state of samadhi. You can't get to samadhi without being able to meditate. That's 7 and 8 of the Ashtanga, 8-limbed yoga. And I started off the class by saying you're not going to get either of those without being able to concentrate, and you're not going to be able to concentrate without being able to detach your mind from things. You see where detachment then becomes important in the first 3 of these. And you can't really do those until you can get a hold of the prana that's causing your mind and its thoughts to move. What to speak of the body and its functions. But prana really, more importantly, is causing your mind and its thoughts to move. But people think about prana, they're also coming from the outside in, aren't they? You go anywhere to get teachings on prana, they're going to talk about rasas, dhatus, karanas. That's fluid essences. You know, take apart your body and show you the different essences and liquids and hormones and gastric juices and various things in it. What do I need to know about that for? To heal my body so I can be a healthy animal? The prana I want is the prana that's causing my mind to move from place to place so that I can stop it. Because that's where peace, or the peace that understands, that passes all understanding, abides. In non-touch, in non-movement, in non-entity, in emptiness. The peace that passes all understanding is there. And that's why I can sit for 700 years and enjoy it. You get the point, the connection. If you move philosophically along a certain bent via practical steps, so forth, you might end up with some idea that non-duality is some sort of formlessness that's no fun. See? It's sterile. But does Swamiji look like he's in a sterile condition? Why is he so pinpoint concentrated for 700 years? What's he looking at that's so interesting? Could it be himself? And what is his self? We have to find out. So meditation will usher in the highest state of samadhi. What are the dangers of meditation? Because people aren't really wanting to hear those, you see. They just want to think about meditation as a healing or health or vibration or longevity or, like I said, a purifier, when none of those things are really the role of meditation. So what are some of the dangers of meditation that can be looked at? It can imbalance the mind if actually overused, especially at the outset. Holy Mother said, if you use the mantra and the meditation too long at the beginning, then you'll have an imbalanced mind. Look at that gentleman. He came here yesterday, was fine. I told him not to do too much. He did too much, and now he's acting crazy today. This is a story in her life. So, this is like acid to the ignorance of your mind. And by the way, the ignorance of your mind is very comfortable right now. See, you're very comfortable in ignorance, aren't you? You don't want to strip that away too fast. See, not until you're ready. Maya is like the skin of a mango, right? It protects the fruit until it gets ripe. So you don't want to peel it early. But once the fruit's ripe, you peel it, and what do you do with the peelings? Do you eat them? So that's Maya, see. Wait till you're ripe, shed it, and don't take it back again once you have. So this is the idea of this using meditation and mantra and spiritual life in a very specifically applied way according to the instructions of the teacher, and gaining your own spiritual experience over time. That's a beautiful way of approaching non-touch yoga. In fact, you're probably in non-touch yoga when you're doing that practice. If you're doing it that way, your practice is a hands-off practice. It's as if you're standing back and saying, I don't really need to practice because I'm already perfect. myself is already perfect. But my mind needs this. So, and my ego needs this, you see. So I'll just, that's a good word for it. I'll just appease, thank you. I'll just appease the ego and mind, see, for now. It's sort of a non-touch way of practice, even then, even back before non-duality is gained. So that's a good point. The second is, can contribute to the growth of the spiritual ego. That's a well-known problem. Meditators sometimes get a holier-than-thou attitude. Oh, I meditate 8 hours a day. How much do you do? Say, well, I did 20 minutes and I went into samadhi. You've been practicing 20 years and you don't even know what samadhi is yet. See? So, lose the superior attitude. You've been turning your wheels for 8 hours a day, but you haven't even learned to concentrate yet. Let's do this gradually, step by step, traditionally. Follow the tradition. Another 3 words my teacher used in every talk he ever gave us in the Vedanta Center of Portland in Oregon. Follow the tradition. And some of us did. And we found it to be wise advice, to say the least. May lull the mind into a habit of complacency. Well, we all know that both mantra and meditation are as hard as digging the dry earth with a spade. Who said that? Holy Mother. It's as hard as digging the dry earth with a spade. So you can fall into levels of complacency around it and just sit just because you sit. You see, oh, my teacher told me to do it, so I think I'll just sit. And you look at your watch. See, 45 minutes hasn't passed yet. See. But one day you'll sit longer than the hour that you're supposed to, because sattva visited your mind. See, and you'll have a beautiful 1.5 or 2 hour meditation. You'll find out that first hour was just getting all the trash in your mind out of the way, so that you could begin to see the clear light of understanding inside of you. Oh, maybe that's going to make me sit for 700 years. Maybe that's the beginning of all knowledge lies within you. See? Maybe that's the beginning of securing right knowledge. Maybe I'm on the trail of non-duality now. Might disturb or stymie the path of action. Here's an interesting point, isn't it? Because you have these apparently opposite paths of wisdom and devotion. The other 2 yogas are the apparently opposite paths of action and inaction, aren't they? So when you talk about synthesizing the 4 yogas, that's a task. And when you come to this idea of action and inaction, as Krishna puts it in probably the most stultifying sloka in the entire Gita, those who understand action in inaction and inaction in inaction, they truly understand. I don't understand that. Would you please explain that to me, Sri Krishna? How is action and inaction and inaction and action the same? Well, you'll probably understand that much more when you get to a level of understanding the non-touch yoga, but basically this ability to act without creating any karma is a very careful and subtle mechanism. It's sort of like walking on rice paper without leaving a wrinkle. It has to be learned over time. So the path of action, as the Gita states, begins with Sankhya. You get the knowledge, and then you understand what renunciation is. But you understand renunciation in action first. That is, you can't renounce action because everyone does action. Their heart beats, you breathe, that's action. So you can't give up action before it's time. So you learn how to renounce through action. And then after that you can get karma sannyasa, then you can get sannyasa. See, how to renounce in a mature way. It's talking about mature detachment. It's come up twice. So that's the difference between just detachment at a mild or medium level and a supreme detachment that dawns on you over time with practice. So you can't abandon work for any other reason In other words, you have to make sure that you do all those actions that are ordained by the scriptures, that are dharmic. Those you keep. Maybe you can start sloughing off those ones that are unnecessary, right? Things that you've taken on that are not benefiting you or others. They're just making things more complex. They're blurring the picture. So anything that you get rid of, throw out of the ship to make it lighter, make it more saleable, then you do that. But these ones that are going to teach you the Dharma, you keep those. And so that's what is meant here. Don't disturb and stymie the path of action by too much meditation or by thinking that meditation is the ultimate goal. The balance of yoga is there. It must be maintained. Moderate. The middle path. That's another danger. The fifth and final is can keep the meditator from full realization. That's very subtle. Some of these have been at an understandable level. When you get to the point where you're an excellent meditator but you can't get samadhi, that's hard to understand unless you're there. That meditation, attachment to meditation, can actually keep you from getting the highest experience. It's sort of like becoming a professional student. It keeps you from getting a good job. You see? So that's why meditation, dhyan, is 7 and samadhi is 8 on this limb of 8-limbed yoga that you're climbing, tree of yoga. So it's a good point. Now, so we have time to finish this chart, which I think we will in about 10 or so minutes that are left, or 15 minutes. Let's look at prayer, because the point of this is to, back to the Ananya Bhakti, yoga of separation, and Jnana Bhakti kind of apparent separation, is to show how these two are similar and also how they each have their own facets. The advantages to prayer are this. It establishes a connection with Ishvara. Ishvara, or Ishvari, as the case may be, Divine Mother of the Universe, or the Lord in form. Highest form of God the human mind can conceive of is Ishvara. You get a connection with that, which is what's being talked about when Christ says, you get to the Father through the Son. The Son is Ishvara, and the Almighty Father would be the formless Brahman to us. So you get into formlessness through this guide, and that's why the mantra will help you, because the mantra is connected to the Ishtam, and the Ishtam is connected to the Father. So it's a beautiful way, a very traditional, classic way of proceeding in yoga and Vedanta, is by going that step-by-step process. The advantages to prayer, the second is that it helps in the development of peace of mind. Who doesn't go to prayer when they're unhappy of mind? They pray to something. And the higher understanding that you have, the better, the more effective the prayer is going to be. That is, if you're praying to some God up in the sky, then it's not going to work very well, because there's nothing up there but planets floating in space. So rather, this position should probably be like this position. You see, pray to yourself. Yourself contains everything in it: gods, goddesses, God, angels, celestials, if ancestors, if that's what you want to pray to. Everything is there inside of yourself. So direct your prayer inwards. Then grant yourself what you want. The act of prayer actually usually keeps you away from what you want, isn't it? Quite often. Sort of like the act of meditation sometimes keeps you away from samadhi. You see the connections? You're in your own way. So the non-touch yoga and that kind of transparency is going to help you very much in skirting these little subtle impediments, obstacles. So, pray to Ganesha if you want to pray. You're the remover of obstacles, you deal with it. But make sure that you know that that little elephant-headed God is inside of you, frisking around in there somewhere, you see. Inside you, the great mind, the heart, as you put it. Because this is meditation, and this is devotion. See, this is jnana, this is bhakti, right? This is non-separation and this is devotion. So put them together. It's the devotion of non-separation. It's all in you. The third advantage to prayer is that it strengthens faith in the chosen ideal. You probably, Mr. K.V. Puttappa, could never have written a song like this without strengthening his faith through prayer and meditation. Shri Sharada Devi He Mahamate Shri Rama Krishna Guru Deva Samprite Parama Pavana Hridaye Kali Yuga Dasite Bhakti Naradi Pevunina Nama Shri Sharada Devi He Mahamate Shri Rama Krishna Shri Rama Krishna Shri Rama Krishna Guru Deva Samprite. And onwards. K.V. Puttappa, my teacher, when he first heard me sing that song, said, I knew Mr. K.V. Puttappa in South India when I was there teaching at the boys' school. And writing this beautiful song in the Kannada language, dialect of India. So it's about Sri Sharda Devi, Hey Mahamate, O Great Mother. You are the chosen ideal, the Ishtam, you see. So you increase your faith and devotion to the Ishtam, to Ishvari, through prayer, through deep introspective prayer. This is the best of prayer. I often talk about prayer in an inferior way, the way we have been using it in fundamentalist religion, in all the wrong ways. But I'd like to talk about prayer in its most positive aspects. And so this is what I think of when I think of true bhakti or true prayer. It's connected to the Ishtam through the mantra, and it's not going to be divorced of all of that beautiful wisdom, you see, that gave you the meaning of the mantra, right? How could you increase your faith to the Ishtam if you didn't know the meaning of what you were singing or saying? And once you do know the meaning, you can write a song like that and dedicate it to the Ishtam. And will she hear you? You as her devotee. The fourth advantage to prayer is that it affords communion with God with form. And God is with form and beyond form both, so we need both. The fifth is it leads naturally to direct meditation on God. So prayer, that's where prayer and meditation meet, right there. If you pray to God, you'll see God, and when you see God, you want to meditate on God. Could it be put any simpler? And then after you come out of meditation, you'll come out with a prayer on your lips. And your whole life will become a prayer. When I sang that song to my teacher, he said, sing those songs and your whole life will become a song. The disadvantages to prayer: it weakens the soul if it's based on gifts and boons. Probably about as clearly as I could put it in a few words afforded to me on an 8x11 again. It just weakens the soul if it's based on gifts and boons, asking God for something. It's not that that can't lead to something higher. Sri Ramakrishna said, God is the wish-fulfilling tree. I could sing songs about that too, Kalpataru. He's the wish-fulfilling tree. But he's a little hard of hearing. That is, if you pray far away from the tree, it's not going to grant you what you want. You want to come close to the tree and then pray. See? That closeness is meditation. People don't know that. They think they can just pray at any old time, any old place. Or maybe a church. They go into a church with a restless mind and they pray. The church isn't going to help them. Temple isn't going to help them. In books and temples, vain thy search. Vivekananda told us that. Thine only is the rope that holds. Thine only is the hand that holds the rope that drags thee on. So get out of that restlessness and get into divine restlessness, and then pray, and then find out that when you see the Kalpataru tree, you'll find it so beautiful that you will naturally meditate on it, and you'll forget your prayer. And lo and behold, when you come out of meditation, you'll find that thing that you were praying for all of a sudden enters your life. Give it time. Number 2, it increases dependency on external powers. That is, if you're praying outward, then you pretty much put yourself as a bondslave to nature or to exterior gods and goddesses, might say. Demigods, asuras, astral beings, celestials, elementals, ghosts, spooks, bhutas. There's many words for them. So don't become dependent on these external powers and give up your own exquisite divine power. Another beautiful song where he says, "O mind, why have you traded away the pure essence at the center of your being for a world of trinkles and baubles?" Become a bondslave to things unreal. Third is, fosters attachment to form, rites, and rituals. All right is a beginning. It's good to be born in a church, but don't die in a church, as Swamiji told us. So, names and forms, rites and rituals, deify them, use them, and take them inward like everything else. If you follow them further out, then they get pedantic, plodding, and they bind you eventually. Fourth and penultimate disadvantage to prayer is that it maintains a sense of duality and dualism. This is getting more subtle now. The actual line of demarcation between God and spirit, between creature and creator, is thickened by prayer if you're not careful. What you want is a thinning power to dissipate that line. Prayer, if it's really true, will help you remove that line of demarcation until one meditation you'll have all of a sudden, which is another plug for meditation, is that you'll find that thing that you're meditating upon, and the act of meditating and the meditator, which is yourself, are one thing. The three have become one. That's why dualities are problematic, but triputis are beneficial. A triputi gives you a door out the back. If some problem is coming at you, you see, I can either go up or down. See, that's duality. Well, what about moving sideways? Oh yeah, I think I'll step aside. The third way is the way out, you see. You need a triputi in everything. So get out of that sense of dualism and duality. Prayer, if it's done right, will decrease that line between them until meditation, it leads to meditation. That's why we say it helps meditation. It can cause forgetfulness of formless reality. And that's probably a problem that's already upon the Western society, maybe upon the whole world in the Kali Yuga, is forgetting completely about our formless nature. Not knowing a thing about it, not wanting to know a thing about it, maybe not even believing in it, or never even entertaining the thought that there might be one in the first place. There's 4 problems right there around the truth, around reality. The final quote here, and we'll end. Sri Sharda Devi says, a worldly woman once entered a shrine. Her husband was ill, and she came there to pray for his recovery. Instead of being prayerful and penitent, however, she had covered herself with perfume. Does this become one who comes before God? Ah me. Well, such is the nature of these modern people. Even in India, you see, in the 1900s probably, she's speaking. So you go before God, you go in a penitent way, you go in a prayerful way. You don't dress yourself up in finery and cover yourself in perfume like you're going out on a social date or something. See, what do you think God is anyway? So the comparison between meditation and prayer is very much similar to the comparison between jnana and bhakti, which is at the heart of our subject of the devotion of non-separation. We'll continue on with it next week and conclude it with a few more charts, a couple very beautiful ones that we can talk about the presence of God, and both in a devotional and in a non-dual way. Form and formlessness, which is the duality, no doubt, but there's also beyond form and formlessness, which is the way out, the third way. So here we end with a chant. Om Tachnayo, Om Tachnayo Ravrini Mahe, Gatung Yagyaya, Gatung Ye Nupataye, Daivi Swastarastu Naha, Swastir Manusebhyaha, Urdhvam Chikatu Bhesajam, Sangno Astu Dvipade Sangchatushpate, Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May we make a great offering into the Great Self. May we always delight in this offering. May we always revere the Lord and Mother of all sacrifices. May divine blessings then be upon us. May peace be into the entire human race. May healing, well-being, and prosperity then also abide among us. Om peace, peace, peace. May peace be unto us, may peace be unto all. Om Hari Om.